Most people treat motivation like fuel, something you need to accumulate before taking action, a precious resource that separates achievers from failures. But this entire framework is fundamentally broken. What nobody tells you is that motivation, as it's commonly understood, is perhaps the most unreliable force you could possibly depend on. And this isn't motivational speaker rhetoric, it's documented psychological reality. The human brain wasn't designed to maintain sustained enthusiasm, burning desire, or consistent emotional intensity toward abstract goals. It was optimized for response to immediate threats and opportunities. Across evolutionary history, humans developed systems for acute motivation, short bursts of energy triggered by survival needs, not sustained passion for spreadsheets or fitness routines. In simpler terms, your brain doesn't generate motivation for going to the office. It generates motivation for escaping predators. It doesn't create enthusiasm for learning a new language. It creates urgency for finding food when you're starving. This isn't a flaw in your psychology. It's the design specification. The disaster occurs because modern achievement culture insists on the opposite. We're told to find our passion, stay motivated, and maintain burning desire. This generates catastrophic misalignment. On one side, neural architecture built for sporadic crisis-driven energy. On the other, demands for constant self-generated enthusiasm. When someone tries to sustain achievement through motivation alone, they're attempting to fuel a marathon with adrenaline designed for 100-meter sprints. The result? Inevitable collapse. BJ Fogg, pioneering behavioral scientist at Stanford University, revealed something that destroys conventional achievement wisdom. Sustainable action doesn't require motivation. It requires proper behavioral mechanics. People who accomplish extraordinary things consistently aren't more motivated or passionate. They've simply built frameworks that make action occur regardless of emotional state, independent of enthusiasm, and completely divorced from inspiration. They don't chase motivation, they engineer around it. Over the next several minutes, we'll expose the motivation myth, reveal why you've been approaching achievement backward, and construct together a radically different paradigm, one grounded in behavioral science, psychological reality, and actual effectiveness. If you've blamed yourself for losing motivation, if you've felt defective for lacking consistent drive, this content won't shame you. It will demonstrate that you were chasing a mirage, and now you'll discover what actually produces results. Motivation as typically conceived seems logical superficially. Feel inspired enough, harness that energy and push toward your goals. But examining how human psychology actually operates reveals this model isn't just incomplete, it's actively destructive. Your brain cannot manufacture sustained motivation on command. It responds to environmental triggers, immediate consequences, and present moment conditions. Misunderstand this, and you'll spend years waiting for feelings that never arrive. Throughout human development, our ancestors faced environments where motivation emerged from necessity, not choice. Hunger motivated foraging, danger motivated escape, cold motivated shelter building. Motivation was reactive, triggered by urgent survival needs with immediate consequences. The neural systems governing motivation evolved for this context: short-term, high-stakes, concrete outcomes. These same systems operate in you today. When you try forcing yourself to work on long-term projects, your brain finds no urgent trigger. When you attempt sustaining enthusiasm for abstract goals like career advancement or financial security, it discovers no immediate survival relevance. When you pursue habits with delayed payoffs like daily exercise or consistent learning, it registers no crisis requiring response. Your brain isn't irrational, it's contextual. It doesn't generate motivation for things that don't trigger its survival-based reward systems. This reveals the critical insight neuroscientists call the motivation myth, the belief that motivation precedes action. Research demonstrates the opposite is true. Action precedes motivation. You don't wait until you feel like doing something. You do it, and the feeling follows. Or more precisely, you don't need the feeling at all. This is what behavioral psychology calls the action priority principle. Successful people don't act because they're motivated. They're motivated because they act. Motivation becomes a byproduct, not a prerequisite. Think about the last time you didn't feel like exercising but forced yourself to start. Within 5 minutes, your energy shifted, your resistance diminished, your body adapted. The motivation you were waiting for appeared only after movement began. This pattern repeats across every domain. Writers don't wait for inspiration to strike. They write, and inspiration emerges through the process. Entrepreneurs don't wait until they feel confident. They take action, and confidence builds through experience. The pattern is universal and ironclad. Waiting for motivation guarantees paralysis. Initiating action generates momentum, and momentum, not emotion, is what carries you through challenging tasks. If you genuinely want transformation, the first step isn't finding motivation. The first step is understanding you never needed it. This realization alone can liberate you from years of unnecessary waiting, self-blame, and psychological paralysis. Now that you know motivation is unreliable and unnecessary, an essential question emerges. What actually drives consistent behavior if not emotional desire? In the next section, we'll explore why your behavioral environment is the true engine of action and how engineering it makes motivation completely irrelevant. If this perspective is shifting something for you, hit the subscribe button and become part of this community. Thank you for engaging. Now that you understand motivation is unreliable by design, we need to examine what actually governs human behavior, your immediate environment and behavioral context. Most people believe action stems from internal drive, some emotional fire that needs igniting. But reality, as BJ Fogg proved, is radically different. Internal motivation is fragile and evaporates within poorly designed behavioral contexts. Examine this carefully. You decide to start a side business. You're excited, inspired, ready to build something meaningful. But when evening arrives, your laptop is in another room. Your workspace is occupied by laundry. The television is at arm's reach. Your phone constantly buzzes with notifications. The mental energy required to begin work is enormous. Meanwhile, the mental energy required to watch Netflix is zero. The choice isn't between ambition and laziness. The choice is between high friction and zero friction. Your brain, as we've established, always selects minimum resistance. This is the fundamental problem. You're trying to change behavior while maintaining conditions that make the desired behavior difficult and the undesired behavior effortless. This introduces the concept that revolutionizes behavioral change, environmental architecture. This principle, demonstrated by Fogg's research, proves human behavior follows the path of least resistance determined by physical and digital surroundings. Success isn't about generating motivation, it's about manipulating friction. Want proof? In studies cited by Fogg, simply increasing the number of steps required to access junk food, placing it in opaque containers, storing it in inconvenient locations, decreased consumption dramatically without any motivational intervention or conscious restriction. What changed? Environmental friction. The undesired behavior became harder. When destructive choices require more effort, the brain naturally migrates toward easier alternatives. Another study examined office workers and productivity. When researchers removed visible clocks from workspaces, time awareness decreased and focus duration increased. When smartphones were placed in different rooms rather than on desks, deep work sessions extended by an average of 42 minutes. These weren't willpower interventions, they were environmental modifications. The physical context changed, and behavior changed automatically as consequence. Now translate this to your situation. Want to write consistently? Keep your laptop open with your document already loaded, not shut down and stored away. Want to eliminate social media addiction? Delete applications. Require password re-entry. Install website blockers. Want to practice instrument daily? Leave it on a stand in your main living space, not in a case in the closet. Because here's the truth. Consistency doesn't emerge from motivation. It emerges from friction reduction. Consistent people aren't more driven. They're more intelligent about configuring their physical space, digital environment, and situational triggers. They recognize that with proper environmental design, desired behavior becomes the default option. They don't rely on feeling inspired. They construct conditions where productive action requires less effort than the unproductive alternatives. This represents the paradigm shift. Stop attempting to generate motivation and start engineering your environment like a behavioral scientist. Behaviors requiring significant effort today become automatic tomorrow when environmental friction is properly reduced. But what if you could go further? What if beyond reducing friction, you could exploit existing automatic behaviors your brain already executes unconsciously? That's exactly what the next section reveals. How to use behavioral anchoring to hijack existing routines and convert them into productivity machines. You've now absorbed two foundational truths. Your brain cannot reliably generate sustained motivation, and your environment determines behavior more powerfully than the inspiration ever could. But even with these insights, one question remains. How practically do you transform desired actions into automatic behaviors? How do you shift from sporadic attempts to consistent execution without relying on motivation, that volatile emotional state? The solution lies in one of behavioral science's most validated techniques, behavioral anchoring. Your brain operates through behavioral chains involving environmental cue, automatic response, and experienced outcome. These chains execute continuously, largely outside conscious awareness. You grab your phone upon waking, you sit in the same chair for meals, you follow identical routes driving home. These actions require zero motivation because they're hardwired into your automatic behavioral programming. Behavioral anchoring proposes something brilliantly effective. Instead of building new behaviors from scratch, you attach them to existing automatic behaviors. You exploit cues already embedded in your daily routine to install new desired actions with minimal psychological resistance. For example, after starting your morning shower existing automatic behavior, you listen to educational audio. After sitting at your desk, you write for 5 minutes before checking email. After putting on running shoes, you step outside immediately. This connection creates behavioral coupling. Your brain begins automatically triggering new behavior when the established routine occurs. You're hijacking automatic sequences to bypass the motivation requirement entirely. Why does this work so effectively? Because you eliminate the primary obstacle, decision-making. Initiating action requires significantly more psychological energy than continuing action. Once behavioral momentum starts, continuation becomes natural. Behavioral anchoring creates that initial momentum. Momentum, not motivation, drives long-term behavioral consistency. But strategic implementation is crucial. You cannot anchor random behaviors arbitrarily. The new action must be minimal, start incredibly small, under 90 seconds. Precise. Not ambiguous intentions like be productive, but concrete behaviors like open, specific document. Connected. It must immediately follow the anchor behavior with zero gap. Following this structure builds neural pathways making desired behavior inevitable. You'll stop requiring motivation to act. Your behavioral system simply executes. That's genuine transformation, when correct action occurs before hesitation emerges, before motivation becomes relevant, before excuses form. Here's what amplifies this effect. These anchored behaviors, appearing insignificant initially, accumulate geometrically over time. They crystallize into unbreakable routines. Eventually you recognize you've built an entire achievement system from connected micro-actions. Consider someone implementing this systematically. After morning coffee, they review daily priorities, 10 seconds. After reviewing priorities, they identify the single most important task, 20 seconds. After identifying that task, they open the relevant file or tool 15 seconds. After opening the tool, they work for just 2 minutes. What started as coffee drinking, an automatic behaviour, has become a productivity sequence requiring zero motivation. The entire chain executes mechanically. But if this strategy is so effective, why do countless people still fail to maintain desired behaviours despite understanding what they should do? The answer involves a critical concept. Behavioural failure isn't motivation deficit, it's mechanical error. In the next section, we'll demolish this widespread belief and understand why behaviours fail not from insufficient drive, but from violating the 3 core mechanics of sustainable action. The term failure carries devastating weight. Most people interpret behavioural inconsistency as personal inadequacy, weakness, or insufficient desire. It's common hearing people say, "I just can't stay committed," or "I'm not disciplined enough." But this interpretation is completely backward and psychologically damaging. According to BJ Fogg, behavioural failure isn't a character issue or motivation problem. It's a design error, clear indication that your behavioural mechanics, environmental setup, and action systems are improperly constructed. When you fail to maintain behaviour, it's not because you lack sufficient desire, it's because executing that behaviour within your current life structure demands too much effort, provides insufficient immediate reward, and conflicts with your existing behavioural patterns. Your brain, operating on efficiency and immediate feedback, abandons behaviours that appear costly, uncomfortable, complex, or offering unclear immediate benefit. Building a business requires sustained effort, uncertainty tolerance, and provides abstract returns, potential future success. Conversely, consuming entertainment or scrolling social media delivers immediate satisfaction, requires zero effort, and provides constant novelty. For your brain, the comparison is simple. This isn't moral failure, it's mechanical reality. This introduces the 3 mechanics of sustainable behaviour described by Fogg as the foundation for making any action maintainable. They are, make it tiny. If the desired behaviour feels overwhelming or time-intensive, it will be avoided. The brain needs the action reduced to its absolute minimum viable form. What's microscopic is what gets done. Make it obvious. The behaviour needs clear environmental triggers and unmistakable cues. You can achieve this by creating visual reminders, setting specific times, or anchoring to existing routines. Make it rewarding. The action needs to generate immediate positive feedback. Without this, the brain doesn't encode the behaviour as valuable. Let's demonstrate practically. Imagine someone wanting to develop a meditation practice, but their current approach looks like this. They plan to meditate for 20 minutes. They have no specific time or location. They own no meditation cushion or designated space. There's no tracking system or immediate reward for completing sessions. Result, they attempt it once, feel it's too difficult and abandon it. Then guilt emerges. Then another attempt happens and fails again. Now observe how identical behaviour transforms with the 3 mechanics applied. They commit to just 2 minutes at first, tiny. They place a meditation cushion in the bathroom so they see it after brushing teeth, obvious. They use a simple app that plays calming audio and tracks completion with satisfying visual progress, rewarding. See the transformation? The person didn't change. They learned to engineer correct behavioural mechanics. They discovered that consistency is impossible when mechanics are broken and natural when mechanics are properly designed. Behavioural failure in this framework stops being mysterious and becomes diagnostic information. Every time you abandon behaviour, ask, is this action tiny enough? Is it triggered by obvious cues? Is it generating any immediate reward? If any answer is no, you have mechanical failure, not motivation failure. What's remarkable is that when you implement these mechanics consistently, behavioural failure nearly disappears. You don't need motivation to act. The action simply happens. The behaviour flows naturally. The system operates independently of your emotional state, energy levels, or momentary enthusiasm. This is the ultimate achievement, building behavioral machinery that functions regardless of how you feel. And when you reach this state, you realize motivation was never the solution. It was always the distraction. But perhaps you're thinking, this makes sense intellectually, but I still dislike these actions. I still hate early mornings. I still detest difficult work, uncomfortable growth, challenging tasks. So here's the question that revolutionizes everything. What if you didn't need to enjoy desired behaviors to execute them consistently? In the next section, we'll destroy the myth that you must love the process to achieve outcomes. You'll discover why the most consistent achievers don't feel passionate about their routines. They simply made execution mechanically inevitable. There exists a pervasive and dangerous belief in achievement culture that you must enjoy the process to become consistent. How often have you encountered phrases like, love what you do, enjoy the journey, or find work that doesn't feel like work? It sounds inspiring, uplifting, but it's false. Worse, it's psychologically paralyzing for people attempting genuine transformation. The truth is uncomfortable but liberating. You don't need to enjoy desired behaviors, you just need to make them mechanically inevitable. Highly consistent people don't wake daily wanting to execute their routines. They don't experience constant enthusiasm for every task. They don't possess unlimited energy for maintaining productive habits. What they possess is architecture that ensures correct actions occur regardless of emotional state. That changes everything. Imagine wanting to build a daily writing habit. You might have legitimate reasons: career advancement, creative expression, personal growth, intellectual development. But 90% of days, you'll feel zero desire. Your mind will crave entertainment. Your emotions will generate resistance. It will seem too difficult or pointless or uncomfortable. You'll convince yourself tomorrow is better. Just like that, the habit dies again. Now imagine different conditions. Before sleeping, you set your laptop on your desk with your writing document already open. You disable all notifications and install website blocking software. You prepare coffee the night before, requiring only reheating. You schedule a brief call with an accountability partner at 7:30 each morning. You've pre-written simple prompts eliminating decision fatigue about what to write. In this second scenario, writing hasn't become more enjoyable. It remains demanding, but you've reduced friction so dramatically and increased structural support so substantially that writing becomes easier than not writing. The decision was made before emotion became relevant. This is what consistent people do. They don't rely on enjoyment. They create mechanical systems that function even during resistance. Here's the crucial insight. Your goal shouldn't be loving desired behaviors. Your goal should be making important behaviors so structurally supported, so friction reduced, so environmentally embedded that executing them requires less energy than avoiding them. That's the difference between living in the motivation paradigm and living in the mechanics paradigm. In the motivation paradigm, everything depends on emotional state, energy levels, and temporary enthusiasm. In the mechanics paradigm, action is structural. It's the default, the only logical pathway. BJ Fogg summarizes this with devastating clarity. Behavior happens when motivation, ability, and prompt converge simultaneously. This means your future won't be determined by how motivated you feel, but by how well you've engineered the intersection of these three elements. The more these elements are systematically aligned, the less you'll depend on motivation, that unreliable resource so many chase endlessly. Therefore saying, I don't enjoy this behavior or I hate this process, stops being valid justification. Nobody needs enjoyment. You just need proper mechanics so well integrated that execution ceases being choice and becomes behavioral inevitability. And regarding inevitability, there exists a final, deeper, more transformative level connecting all these concepts into powerful truth. Consistency isn't about what you do, it's about who you believe you are. In the remaining sections, we'll explore how genuine transformation occurs not when you force different actions, but when you adopt different identity, and how that shift makes sustainable behaviour almost effortless. After everything discussed, it becomes clear that what we label consistency isn't innate talent or mysterious gift reserved for exceptional individuals. Consistency, in reality, is byproduct, natural result of proper behavioural mechanics, intentional environmental design, and solid identity foundation. When these elements align, acting consistently stops being constant struggle and becomes your operational baseline. But there exists an even deeper, more fundamental principle requiring understanding. No behavioural change, routine modification, or habit implementation will genuinely last without change in self-perception. That's the actual core of transformation. BJ Fogg argues that the deepest level of behavioural change isn't what you want to accomplish, but who you choose to become. Identity shapes behaviour, and behaviour reinforces identity. It's cyclical. If you want consistent productivity, you need acting like someone who believes they are productive. Small daily choices, seemingly trivial, are identity affirmations toward new self-concept. Every time you complete focused work, even briefly, every time you choose learning over entertainment, every time you execute despite resistance, you're telling yourself, I am the type of person who does what matters. This is more powerful than any technique, any framework, or any elaborate strategy because you're not just attempting different actions, you're becoming a different person. And when identity transforms, behaviour follows as natural expression. Consider how this operates practically. Someone wants to become a writer. Under the motivation paradigm, they wait for inspiration, perfect conditions, and emotional readiness. Under the mechanics paradigm, they engineer tiny writing sessions anchored to existing routines. But under the identity paradigm, something deeper occurs. They begin identifying as writer, not aspiring writer. After writing one sentence, they think, I'm someone who writes. After maintaining a 3-day streak, they think, I'm the type of person who shows up. After 1 month, writing isn't something they do. It's part of who they are. And once behaviour becomes identity, maintaining it requires almost zero effort. You don't need to motivate a writer to write. They write because that's their nature. You don't need to push an athlete to train. They train because that's their identity. The behaviour becomes self-perpetuating. This is why focusing solely on outcomes or even systems misses the deepest level. The question isn't just what you want to achieve or what systems you'll build. The question is who you're becoming through your daily micro-decisions. Every action is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Write for 2 minutes, that's a vote for writer identity. Choose water over soda, that's a vote for health-conscious identity. Respond thoughtfully instead of reactively, that's a vote for composed identity. These votes accumulate, and when enough votes are cast in one direction, identity shifts. When identity shifts, behaviour becomes effortless expression of self-concept rather than forced discipline against natural inclinations. Therefore, genuine consistency isn't ultimate destination. It's merely reflection of psychology that has stopped fighting itself and started engineering proper conditions. Someone who understands winning doesn't require emotional intensity, just mechanical precision combined with identity alignment. So if you've reached this point, you now face real choice. You can continue blaming insufficient motivation, or you can start today engineering the environment, mechanics, and identity that make consistency inevitable. Stop waiting for inspiration. Stop punishing yourself for lacking constant drive. You don't need perfection, you just need sufficient mechanical design to let the system function independently. Now, I want to know from you, what is the first behaviour you will engineer starting today? Comment below, because the simple act of articulating commitment is already identity affirmation toward your new self. And if this video transformed how you understand motivation, don't forget subscribing to the channel, because here we explore deeper than surface level inspiration. We examine what actually works. The path forward isn't complicated. but it requires rejecting everything achievement culture taught you. Forget about finding passion. Forget about generating motivation. Forget about loving the grind. Those are beautiful lies that keep you waiting for feelings that never arrive. Instead, focus on the 3 pillars we've explored. Engineer your environment to make desired behavior the path of least resistance. Implement behavioral mechanics that make action tiny, obvious, and immediately rewarding. Most importantly, cast daily votes through micro behaviors for the identity you wish to embody. When these 3 elements align, something remarkable happens. The struggle disappears, the resistance fades, the behavior simply occurs day after day, week after week, until you look back and realize you've become someone completely different. Not through heroic effort or burning motivation, but through intelligent design and patient identity construction. That's the truth motivation gurus won't tell you. Success doesn't require superhuman drive. It requires understanding how behavior actually works and engineering your life accordingly. Start today. Start tiny. Start with mechanics, not motivation. Your future self will thank you for finally understanding what actually works.